Heyo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of the OddsJam NBA podcast with your hosts Matt and Puneet. Puneet, how we doing?
Puneet is doing well, ready for a new week of shows and a new week of positive EV and ARB betting. So
yeah, new week of opportunity for us to make money betting on sports.
Absolutely. Which, I mean, it's cool because you think about like literally a year ago, we were like, what do we do in the pandemic? And then once betting became legal, this became pretty much the only thing we focused on.
Yeah. It consumed our lives. And now we are now that we have OddsJam to kind of help us with the bets to make, we are making way more money than we did before.
Oh, yeah. To kind of go a little off topic, but I did a little calculation about when I started OddsJam versus before, and the difference is in 1 month is ridiculous. So I'm like all for it, but I'm glad that we're able to continue to use OddsJam and make money off of it.
Yeah, I mean, my profit is at 2,700, which I can assure you I didn't make that in any of my time betting up until then. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so before we get into everything, I just want to start off by telling people we are on a new YouTube channel. So no longer on the OddsJam one. We have our own OddsJam NBA show YouTube. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, I would like for you to pause the podcast, go to YouTube, and subscribe to our new YouTube channel.
That would be greatly appreciated.
And then watch stuff, like stuff, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff, so we can kind of help growing and just get a bigger audience. It really helps us out.
Yeah. More people listening makes it more fun for us. We want to make this, and like you said, like, subscribe, rate, review, leave some comments. If you have questions, if you think our takes suck, let us know, and we'll come right back at you and tell you suck. But hey, it's cool. We're all for it.
Yeah, we want feedback, positive and negative. We'll just yell at you for the negative ones and only care about the positive ones. So before we get started, I need to know, if people are watching on video, they see you, Puneet's background with Jimmy Butler. I need to know, what have you looked at in your life that makes you, I need to know, like, if you were looking at that paper and you made that face, what have you looked at in the past that's made you do that?
Me personally, I think seeing right now, actually, I'm seeing the Wizards playing as well as they are. Because that was not expected by me. And I said this before too, I think on last pod, that I'll take it on the chin because I did not expect them to play well. I didn't expect them to win the first game, let alone start 5-1. So, hey, sometimes it's a good thing that, your team that you're rooting for, even though you think they're going to suck, they pleasantly surprise you. They're a fun team to watch. But I still am going to not really buy into the hype. I think they're gonna even out pretty quickly, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's part of what I have to discuss, is like just how insane the East is. We can get into that. For me, it was seeing that the Sixers were out 4 of their 5 starters on, I guess that was last night, and still won against the Blazers. And the funny thing was, they played the Blazers, and whenever the away team gets announced, they boo everybody. And then when Lillard was announced, they cheered him. And then when he was chanting, he was there chanting, "We want Lillard." It's just so funny.
Yeah, I did see that. He was shooting his free throws and they were chanting it. But he did say after the game that he has 10 toes in Portland, which is the weirdest quote I've ever heard.
Weird phrasing to say that you're all in.
Yeah, just say you're all in. Like, what is
I know. Yeah, it didn't make sense. But we could get into that later. So just to give a summary of today's episode. So first, we're going to start off with Oath Corner, as always. New addition, Zion. I think he's the only one that really had anything in the news. Then we'll talk to Puneet about his weekend at Arby's. We'll talk to me about how I've done with my positive ED. And then the meat of the show will be the week that was, just, what happened in the NBA week. And then lastly, we'll close out with big games to look out for.
Sounds good to me. So yeah, let's dive right into Oath Corner, like you said. So the first and only really topic of Oath Corner, because it's been pretty quiet on the Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving front, but the Zion Williamson front. So a video surfaced of him training, and he honestly, he was running from the free throw line to the sideline, essentially. Yeah,
I think he was it was him warming up, not warming up. It was him doing a workout pre-game, right? It was it was in an actual stadium before the game, doing some sort of workout. And he looked like, he looks like me trying to run after I have Taco Bell. It's It was bad. It was
All right,
bad.
he looked like a whale. Let's not beat around the bush here.
Call
He was
spade a
literally,
spade.
yeah, he was just a whale, and he looked like somebody who is about probably like 100 pounds overweight and was waddling essentially. And
It was not good.
It was real bad. You could tell you could tell from the video that he was way overweight. And based off of that, they said that he is 2 to 3 weeks away from running. Yeah, no chance.
2 to 3 more weeks. Yeah, it's not looking good. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like my prediction was he's not going to play in the year 2021. That's just looking better and better as time goes on.
Yeah, if only there were odds for that, I would have jumped on those. But
that would have been nice.
Do you think they're going to start to sour on him now?
I don't know. I mean, like they're 1-6. They look awful. They look terrible. And Ingram is now hurt with his hip. So I don't know if they're going to sour on him or just if they're just going to pull I don't know, like the Warriors 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When Steph got hurt, they're just going to tank. Like, all right, like,
just
not that they're as nearly as good as the Warriors were, but they're just going to shut them down and be like, all right, you're not coming back. Like, it's not worth it. Our team is terrible.
Yeah. Kind of like a Joel thing where you just kind of let him sit, trust the process, hope that he loses some weight in Zion. And
yeah. Hey, if Zion does what Joel did with that recovery, then that's a A+ win for the Pelicans.
Yeah. I'm not counting on that. I'm not holding my breath, but, never say never, I guess.
Yeah. The only real news, excuse me, I just knocked my headphones out of my ear. With Simmons, just came out today is that he's like refusing help from the Sixers, and then their frustration is growing, which like, I don't know how tall is that frustration. If it's like, I feel like it's grown since.
Yeah.
June.
Could it get any larger? I thought it was pretty much at its boiling point.
Like, I don't know how you can grow any larger than it is. And I don't know. We talked about this last week that we don't want to accuse him of faking, not mental illness, but whatever mentally he's going through. But if you are one of those people that doesn't buy it, this kind of helps. I don't know. This is ammunition for those people that think that. It's not a good look for him. And if he does need help, hopefully he gets it. It's just not a good look where the Sixers are trying to help and he's refusing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously Ben is, he has something going on. I will say though, and we've kind of criticized Ben for the most part. I will say though, the Sixers are handling this pretty terribly as well. The organization is not, I don't know. What do you think on that?
Well, I'm curious, like, how would you prefer them handle it? Like, what are they doing that's wrong?
So I think I feel like they've definitely during the offseason, they threw him under the bus. I think that was pretty clear. All
right, I need to dig into that. So in what way do they throw him under the bus?
So I think the way in which Doc talked about him, I think the way in which, and see, it's a two-way street, right? Like it takes two to tango. Ben was obviously non-existent, didn't really care, and, made it known that he had no plans to be with Philly and did not want anything to do with Philly. I think the professional thing would have been, all right, keep this in-house. Morey, find, a trade partner under wraps. But then they started talking. The second ownership or GM or front office starts talking about trading and talking about, oh, well, this player, yeah, he should be a team player, blah, blah, blah. I know Doc has said some stupid things. I can't remember exactly. I'm not, like I said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but I just feel like they could have handled it under wraps as best as they could. It's one thing when a player is disgruntled and saying things, but it's another thing when the front office then starts kind of chirping back too.
Yeah, I'm always one to criticize Doc, but I don't necessarily agree with that because, they talked about him after Game 7, which like emotions were high, and like I don't really. Embiid basically said he was asked what was the turning point of Game 7. He said, "Well, I don't know how to put this, but essentially when we had an open dunk and it only turned into 1 point," which also like it's obviously that's saying Ben should have dunked it, but it's also saying that player should have made the second 2 free throws. Like it wasn't just on Ben. And then someone asked Doc if he thinks that Ben could be a championship point guard, like a point guard on a championship team, and Doc just said, "I don't know," which I don't think is like the best answer. He should have just said he should have just BS'd like he did all year, but I don't necessarily think that's him throwing Ben under the bus. And then everything was quiet between between Joel and Doc until training camp started, when Ben didn't show up, when Ben's team started leaking like a bunch of really ridiculous stuff, which they had to comment on. So, there's like 3 months had passed where no one said anything. And then training camp started And then they were like, I don't know. Doc said some really stupid stuff, but I don't really think that they necessarily threw him under the bus. Just that, like, yeah, we would like for him to be here. He plays for our team. We would like for him to play for his team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll agree to disagree, and I think you also are agreeing to disagree. I think you hate Ben, so I think you're a little biased, but
I hate Doc just as much as I hate Ben. To be clear,
but I mean, one player versus basically like the front office, because Doc is obviously the voice of the front office to the media most times.
Yeah, him and Daryl, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, either way, it doesn't seem like the saga is going to end anytime soon.
No, that we can agree on.
Yeah, and good on Kyrie. He's been out of the news for 2 straight weeks now.
Yeah, he's just posting cryptic things on Instagram. So
yeah, what do you expect?
Yeah, of course, Illuminati stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's just classic Kyrie.
Yeah.
All right. So, how would your weekend go? How was Arby's?
So the Arby's were okay. This week I actually did not get a chance to do a full week. It was only 4 days. But for our NBA, it was about $85, and that was across 10 bets again. So about $8.50, $9 per, which is again not great, but again, this is free money, and how we've been kind of talking about Arby's is that we use that for using our positive EV bet. So you're essentially playing with $82 of free money. And that's the good way to look at it. That's a good way to think about it. Like I said, this was only 4 days, missed 3. And I also lost out on about $25 more. And this is a little lesson for everyone. I know arbitrage betting is centered and focused around being quick, because the lines are constantly changing, and you really have to pay attention, and you really have to be quick to lock in a lot of the arbs that show up on OddsJam. What I did by mistake was I took Kyle Lowry's under on both books instead of taking an under in one book and the over in the other. So that, and then the lines changed almost immediately after I locked those both in. So please pay attention when you are putting in your arb bets, because you do not want to end up losing $500 like I did. So yeah, that one stung a bit, but all in all, because I have been doing so well with arbitrage betting, it really wasn't that big of a hit on my entire bankroll.
Yeah, and to still be able to profit with that happening is always good. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. What was that? Like Kyle Lowry had the most points he's ever had in the Heat uniform.
Yeah, I mean that's I can go on a soapbox about Kyle Lowry. He was playing awful the first 5 games of the season, 4 or 5 games of the season. Didn't reach 10 points in any game, including the preseason, except for one time in the preseason. And the over under was 13.5. He ended up scoring 16 that night. Go figure.
That's tough.
Yeah,
that's tough. But hey, I mean, overall, as long as you still profit, that's really all that matters.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how was your positive ED then?
So my ED, it wasn't quite as successful as last week. I know I said that like last week I profited 1,000 betting for 7 days on strictly positive EV stuff. Mm-hmm. This week was quote unquote only 300 profit, which I said you're not going to have weeks as successful as last week, but as long as you still profit, that's all that really matters. So
absolutely,
2 weeks betting on the NBA, I'm up $300. And just to highlight some of the biggest wins, I put $100 on Wendell Carter over 8.5 rebounds. That was at plus 110 odds. So nice 210 payout there. Another one was LaMelo had his over 6.5 rebounds priced at plus 130. I put 75 on that just based on the Kelly Criterion calculator that's on OddsJam. So that was a nice payout. And then the last one was just last night, $95, Reggie Jackson under 17.5 points. That hit, and the odds were minus 125 on that. So 2 plus money plays, one heavily, not plus money, but heavy dollar figure just based on the percent chance of the bet hitting. All 3 hit. Obviously, I had a ton more, but those are 3 I just wanted to highlight. Those are my 3 biggest wins.
Yeah, you got to love it. It's literally chopped up for you.
I know.
It's a single thing on OddsJam. But that's the beauty of OddsJam too. We're talking specifically about NBA, but that doesn't mean we're not playing baseball. We're not playing football, both college and NFL. Hockey, next week college basketball is starting. And so there is a plethora of different opportunities and this past weekend was probably one of the funnest because it was pretty much all 4 major sports had something going on. So the betting opportunities are wild, and it's only going to keep getting larger, which I'm excited for. Like I said, with college basketball starting next week.
Yeah, I mean, if with me having a $750 bankroll, I had a not great week, profit $300, and already paid for what the industry plan cost you. So, example out there for people that want to make money just like we do. We can help you with that.
Absolutely.
But cool. All right, so to get into the week that was, I have to bring this up at the top. The Lakers still have a Russell Westbrook problem. We don't need to discuss it as long as we did last week because I mean I think our points remain the same. But
Yes.
There is one stat that I have to say that I stole this from Twitter. So there are 8 possible combinations for Russ, LeBron, and AD to be on and off the court together, right? So they're like all 3 together. There's only 2 of the 3 together. There's 1, and then there's none. The Lakers have a negative net rating for every option with Russ on the court and a positive net rating for every option with Russ off court. So like,
yikes.
So like literally the only common denominator is Russell Westbrook between them winning and them losing. So I know like the argument, oh, he's turned it on the past 2 years. I don't know. This year is different based on the situation he has with Russ and AD or with LeBron and AD.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see what'll happen. We mentioned last week on the pod that, yeah, it was a Russ problem and he wasn't looking right. That very night, I think, or the next night after we put out the pod and it was published out, he had that triple-double in the win. But that was without LeBron. So he played well in 2 games without LeBron, but they ended up losing one of those games.
They lost to the Thunder and they blew a 26.
Yeah, that was gross. But so that I mean, we don't need to go too far into this, but the one question I did have about Russ and that whole situation was, do you think LeBron will be the one to adjust? Because I mean, LeBron is still one of, if not the best players in the world. And I think he's been perfectly capable of making adjustments in the previous 18 years of his career based off of the other superstars that he has on this team. So I know that last week I mentioned, all right, like Russ will most likely adjust or he'll kind of figure it out in the second half. Do you think it's kind of one of those things where it's going to probably be LeBron instead of Russ making the adjustments to try to make it work?
I mean, if that happens, I think the collective universe can agree that is a problem that is a negative outcome for the Lakers if LeBron has to adjust to Russell Westbrook.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%.
Like the super, like back in the day, maybe we could have agreed that Russell Westbrook was a superstar, but like he's not one now. So yeah, maybe LeBron, like if he wanted to defer to AD, totally on that. AD's awesome. He's amazing. If he starts to adjust to like, I don't know, to play more off ball, to not be as ball dominant, that's a net negative for the Lakers. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did that because for all LeBron's faults, he's always tried to kind of be like the glue, the cohesive glue to keep the team together.
Yeah.
So I could see him doing that, but then that would just enhance my belief that the Lakers have a Russell Westbrook problem.
No, I think you're right. I think they absolutely do have a Russell Westbrook problem. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And you can see that even when LeBron was off the court, they couldn't do anything with Russ and AD. I mean, like I said, they won 1 game, but then they blew a 26-point lead to the Thunder the very next game, and that was gross. So it's definitely something that we will be monitoring throughout the year. I mean, you still got to think they have AD, they have LeBron, they have a pretty good supporting cast, so they'll still make noise, and you can never count LeBron out. So we'll just see how it develops and how it unwraps.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly telling that like any option that includes Russ is negative. Any option that includes not Russ is positive. That's like, it really doesn't get any worse than that. But I had to bring that up at the top. So I'll let you start with what you had. Like there's amazing for the week that was.
That's cool. No, one thing actually, so my thing that I really am enjoying at this point, and this is something that Draymond actually said as well. He's loving the new rules. He's loving the refs not calling these ticky-tack fouls, letting the players play a little more. I'm all for it. I think, sadly, the superstars will complain. The ones who, are always getting those foul calls, they'll start to complain a little more.
We've already had some people start to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'll end up kind of regressing to the mean, and there'll be some sort of middle ground there where the superstars still get their calls, but it's not going to be as outrageous as it was in the past. But I'm enjoying the little more physical aspect that the refs are letting these NBA players play. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of like back, not 90s basketball, but I think the closest to 90s basketball we'll ever get to at this point, because everyone says that the league is kind of getting a little soft and catering to their superstars and giving them calls and things like that. So, and obviously they want like a more offensive game because that sells tickets, that sells TV. But I think the way they've handled it thus far has been pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I hope it's not one of those situations where it's like they emphasize it heavily at the beginning of the year
and then don't care.
Exactly. Like that. Like the NBA isn't really guilty of this, but it happens all the time in the NFL where they have something that they emphasize. So they call the crap out of it in like the first month of the year to kind of get the players to adjust. And then they stop calling it nearly as strict. No, I had the same thing. Like my second point was a huge story is how poorly the offenses are performing. And I have a bunch of stats to back that up. So the current, obviously this is all going to change because we're only 2 weeks into it, but the current point per game leader is Steph, who has 28.7 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, there were two players that had over 30, which one was Steph, the other one was Brad Beal. And there were 5 that had over 28 points per game. The team with the most points per game is the Hornets, which is at 117. Last year, there were 2 teams that had above that number, the Bucks and the Nets. And then even if you go dig even deeper and look at the advanced stats and not just like the cosmetic stuff. And here's a trivia question for you. Can you guess which team has the highest offensive net rating in the NBA so far?
Oof. It's going to be probably some outrageous team.
You could have given me 30 guesses and I probably would have guessed them 30th. Well, not really. I would have guessed them above the 4 tanking teams, but like, that's my point. It's
probably the Lakers then.
No, it's the Sixers.
Oh, geez.
Which is very surprising.
Thinking Lakers because anything offensive, anything efficiency wise, I know you would never put Russell Westbrook in any sort of efficiency conversation.
Yeah. Well, and to be clear, like, I don't think this, like the Sixers offense is going to come down to earth. Like they're not going to end with even a top 5 offense, probably not even top 10, but their offensive rating, net rating is 115.8. Last year, 7 teams had a higher net rating than that. And then defensively net rating, the Lakers had the highest last year with 106.8. Last year, last year the Lakers had the highest one. This year, there are 14 teams that either have that rating at 106.8 or better.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's what Jimmy's looking at back here. Jimmy's looking at all these stats.
All those.
What the hell is going on? Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 weeks into it, like the biggest story is to me. Well, the second biggest story. I'll be talking about my first one later. It's just the offenses. Like I know you mentioned last week that the Wiz held a team under 85 points for the first time in like 4 years. And at the time that was crazy. But now when you see just how poorly the offenses are playing. So I want to ask you, like, I'm curious, like what percent do you think that is attributed to the new foul rules and how much of that is attributed to like the fans being back, because that was a huge thing. Offenses overperform because the same thing happened in football when there are no fans.
Yeah. And that's so to your point about football, I think it was Tom Brady who said it that, it was a luxury last year playing without fans because there was pretty much you're on neutral field at all times.
Exactly.
You didn't have to worry about crowd noise. You didn't have to worry about anything else. You can make your adjustments in game in, mid play almost. And I think the same goes for the NBA. They played the bubble and then they played an entire season after the bubble without fans essentially, or very few. So I'm sure that has something to play with it. I think that the referees and the new rules on fouling plays a part in it as well. But I do think it's gonna have to go back up because, like I said, offense is what sells seats and what sells tickets and what sells TV. So I'm worried that this, although it's as pure basketball fans that we're enjoying it, but the average viewer is like, this is boring. They only scored 85 points, 90 points. Like, what the heck's going on? Yeah. I want like 3-pointer after 3-pointer. I want Steph launching 30-footers and then Dame going right down the court and launching another 30-footer and then flip the channel to KD erupting for 60 points or whatever, right? Like that's what sells NBA and that's what sells. So I think it's only a matter of time before it kind of starts regressing back to what we did see in the past.
Yeah, I wonder about the validity of that because I feel like the average fan hates how much stoppage there is in the NBA. So like, I mean, you watch James Harden or Trey Young or people like grab someone, like all the fouls are getting rid of, jump into people, grabbing their arm and then flailing, like all that stuff we hated. And I feel like the average fan also hated that. So like the launching threes back and forth isn't really affected by the new foul rules, except for the jumping into people. That's obviously affected. But that's not really launching a three. That's kind of just, I don't know, trying to like cheat your way into getting 3 free throws, which James Harden just lived off doing. So far, the overall ratings haven't drastically changed. They haven't gone down at all. Obviously 2 weeks into the year, it's like everyone's going to be excited about the NBA coming back. So you really can't take too much from ratings at this point. But I do wonder how much the average fan is going to enjoy the non-foul fests, because that could make games just so unwatchable when like the stoppages.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I kind of, to go against that, and when you see like a lot of fouls and when the players recognize that, oh man, if I'm anywhere close to this guy around the 3-point line, I need to take a step back because they're going to call a foul on me every single time. They'll take a step back. That causes more open opportunities from like long range, for example. Now, because they're being more lenient, swallowing their whistles a little bit, the refs are, I think defenders are starting to play a little more tight, a little more up close, not giving that breathing room that was initially there when these ticky-tack fouls were being called. So I think there's kind of that trade-off of how it's how the points are and how the fireworks are not as grand as they have been.
Yeah, that's a good point. So kind of like defenses are adjusting because of the new foul rules and they're playing harder, which means people aren't as open. So it's more than just the fouls.
Yeah, like you've seen a lot of the tightly contested games, double overtime games. They've been defensive battles rather than offensive battles.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, 3-4 years, it's been these offensive showcases. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it all kind of comes down to the ratings and what the ratings say. If the ratings are up with these battles, then this maybe could be something that ends up becoming normal again. But who knows? We'll see what happens.
Carson doesn't like the foul rules, I guess.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, sorry. It's a good point. And it'll be interesting to see. Like, I agree. At the end of the day, it's all about ratings. But I think to me, the number one thing 2 weeks into the year is just look at the standings in the East. I know you wanted to bring up the Wizards, deservedly so. They're having a great start to the year. And obviously this is going to change. I mean, like, it's not going to end even remotely close to this, but the first 4 seeds, number 1 Bulls, 2 Heat. Okay, Heat are good. That's fine. 3 Knicks, 4 Wiz. Then you get the Sixers at 5, which is fine. Obviously they're good. The Raptors at 6, the Hornets at 7, which is surprising because the Hornets were like the darlings. The Nets are the 8 seed and the Hawks are the 9 seed. Cavs are 10. And then all the way at 11 are the Bucks.
At 3 and 4.
At 3 and 4. So
yeah, this is bizarro world. I don't understand what the heck is going on. So realistically speaking, all right, you can expect the Heat to make the playoffs. I think you can expect the Knicks to make the playoffs. The Bulls, depending on, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. It's tough, right? Sixers should make the playoffs. Raptors, I think they're overperforming. Hornets overperforming. They're still young. I don't think that they're going to keep this up. Wizards, all advanced stats show that they are going to shit the bed sooner or later. I'm thinking sooner. I love them. I'm loving this 5-2 record that they have now. But I'm trying to be realistic about it, that there's a good chance that they're not going to be a 700 team.
Yeah, you don't think they're going to have a 700 winning percentage?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's possible. Hawks obviously will figure themselves out. The Nets, same thing. Bucks are 3 and 4. But yeah, let's talk about the Bucks for a second. What the heck happened to them? We thought they were world beaters, and now all of a sudden Drew Holiday goes out and they can't play anything.
Yeah, they've been missing. I mean, like you said, Drew Holiday's out. DiVincenzo hasn't played. I forget. I remember one game. I think when they lost to the Bulls or the Jazz, they were missing 3 of their 5. They were starting Giannis's brother. 2 weeks into the year at 3 and 7, I'm not going to worry about the Bucks until after Christmas, until it's 2022.
Even then you're still kind of like meh about it.
They'll figure it out. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much history of regular season and now postseason success with the Bucks. I think the bigger story is the Nets. We talked about them last week, and I mean they're healthy. They like aside from Kyrie, but like they've had KD and Harden, and I think Harden has had a tough time adjusting to the foul rules, and he's complained about his hamstring. Not necessarily that it hurts, but that he spent all offseason rehabbing it, so he's not in as good a shape as he normally is.
Right.
Because as tubby as Harden's always been, he could like blow by people easily. Right. I mean, he just crush people, which he hasn't been able to do. And because of that, the Nets have been struggling. I mean, currently constructed, they have a negative net rating, and their offensive rating, which you would expect. I mean, you'd expect to end number one, is all the way down at 22nd.
Yeah, I mean, so they are on a 2-game win streak. James Harden had a triple-double in their last win. So, yeah, I mean, he was one of the guys to complain about the foul calls and everything. So the very next game, he ended up shooting, I think, 19 free throws.
Yeah, I know. Like of course.
Yeah, of course that happens, right? This is a superstar being able to kind of throw his weight around, both literal and figurative for James. But, yeah, I mean, all signs point to them kind of figuring it out. KD's still going to be KD. He can tell there's no rust there at all.
He's been great. Awesome. Yeah, he's been great.
And yeah, I mean, I do think you could see it in the beginning of the season that Harden was not really playing up to what we have seen him play in the past in terms of his standard, in terms of par for James Harden. And yeah, I'm sure that rehabbing the hammy the entire offseason will result in him needing a little more ramp up time, but triple-double, their last win. Maybe he's starting to figure it out. We'll see. We'll revisit this and where the Nets are next week. One team I want to highlight is the Celtics. I think they're cooked.
They're on my list, dude. They're on my list. I agree. And they're imploding.
Yeah, I agree. Do you see that? The quote Marcus Smart said, basically calling out Tatum and Brown for needing to pass the ball more. I don't really even know how to.
Yeah. You remember our Marcus Smart argument back in the bubble playoffs? That's the first thing I thought of when I saw that. Obviously, this is totally different. But yeah, I mean, I saw the exact quote, and then he also kind of like had a shot at the coaching staff saying he can't help if he's just standing in the corner. So
I saw today actually there was a report that an ex-Celtics player who wanted to remain anonymous basically said like, yeah, that place, I was told by or it was someone who was considering signing with Boston and was told by an ex-player, like, you don't want to be within 10 feet of that place like that. Like it's toxic in there. Even Kemba hated the fans and didn't like the atmosphere, didn't like the culture. Gordon Hayward had to talk to Brad Stevens about like growing a backbone, and he still never did it. There's just definitely signs of crumbling within now in Boston. So this young group that was kind of looked at as potentially the beast in the East for the next X years is slowly crumbling before our eyes.
Which I just could not be happier to see. It is. That's a good point. It's crazy to think about. So the year where Gordon Hayward broke his leg, the Celtics, without him and without Kyrie, took the Cavs to a Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Mm-hmm. And at that moment in time, everyone was thinking, this Celtics dynasty is going to be on another level because they went, like I said, within one game of the finals without their two best players. With that was Jason Tatum's rookie year. That was Jaylen Brown's sophomore year. And then to see what's happened since then, Kyrie just went on a rampage and just annihilated that place.
Well, he annihilated where he goes.
Yeah, that's true. He's a tornado. Kemba, who I love, just never got healthy, and like you said, just didn't like the culture there. Which they've always had. People have always complained about the racist fans in Boston. Them in Utah, the fans always get the worst rap as far as racism goes. So I'm not surprised to hear that. And then going back before that, I wonder how much of this toxic culture is regarding that whole Isaiah Thomas trade. Yeah,
like they don't take care of their own. Just kind of threw them out for dead, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, 2-5 record just last night. I think that was last night. They blew the huge lead to the Bulls.
Yeah, it was last night.
Yeah, outscored like 36-7 in the fourth quarter. Something absurd.
That's ridiculous.
I have written down Celtics are imploding.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I think this is something we'll monitor, but they if this keeps going, I could see them kind of selling come trade deadline. So it's something to monitor as we move forward.
Yeah, they have two studs, two stars, and then other than that, no one's untouchable. They've kind of just mismanaged that entire roster as the years have gone on.
It's crazy to think who they had come through Boston and now what they're. Not that Tatum and Brown are bad players. They're both two very, very good players, all stars, fringe all NBA players. But it's just thinking about the rotating door in Boston for the last 3-4 years has been wild.
Yeah. If they start selling, I would give my soul to get Jaylen Brown on the Sixers. I love Jaylen Brown.
I think every team would want him.
Yeah, he is the prototypical. Every single team in the NBA can get a Jaylen Brown.
Yep.
He's just such a good player. But yeah, so thinking at the top of the East, I think I can agree with you. There's probably 6 locks that are going to be in the top 8, probably, no matter what. I know the play-in, but just thinking about the top 8. Mm-hmm. And then the Cavs are, they're the 10, right? They're 10 right now. They're kind of, they have some good wins, some bad losses. Yep. I kind of agree that the Raptors at the end of the day, probably going to be closer to 10 than they will 8. That defense is frail, but that offense is disgusting.
Yeah.
Then there's a bunch of teams like the Hornets, the Wiz, probably not the Bulls, that are going to be stuck to that 8 to 10 range. And you just wonder which one of them is going to, which 4 teams are going to have to play in the play-in. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting.
I will say, so this is my one future take here, but Evan Mobley plus 600 rookie of the year. I'm locking that in.
Oh, I could not agree more, especially with Cade having a slow start and being injured.
Yeah, and Jalen Green stinks, but Jalen Green, he's playing well for Houston, but other than that one game where he dropped, I think 8 3-pointers, I think he's been combined 3 for 30 something from 3-point range. So just one blow up game and then has been very mediocre ever since. But yeah, Evan Mobley is the real freaking deal. He looks so good, both on offense and defense.
He's incredible. Yeah, he's going to be one of those players that's a big man that can just change a team defensively.
He has Anthony Davis vibes to me.
Yeah, I can see that. He's skinny. He's got long arms, but he can just move like a gazelle. And I don't know. The most impressive thing to me about him is defensive positioning, because young players are always terrible on defense, but he's been not only not terrible, but he's been legitimately awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been cool to see, because Cleveland has, without LeBron, has just been a shit show.
Has been nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. All these 7-footers and their starting 5 could all be 6'10" and above.
Yeah.
But
they need
it's working, I guess. They're doing something right.
They need one of Garland or Sexland. They need Sexland to take a jump, because Mobley, I think he's going to be one of the best players in the East for a long time, but they need one of those guards to step up.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't really have confidence in either one of those two.
No, Sexton is just a scorer. He's not really a good distributor, and Garland, I don't see it either. But what about my boy Franz Wagner on the Magic?
Dude, he's not bad. I've enjoyed
28 points last night, something like that.
Yeah, hey, you gotta love that. I love the Wagner bros. I think because we had his older brother, the Wizards did last year. So that was pretty cool. But Mo Wagner, he was all right. And then he played with the Celtics to finish the year. I don't even know where he is now, to be honest. But his older brother's definitely better.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, and it's Magic. Whatever.
Yeah. They're one of the 4 tanky very much teams that are just not even bothering to try to win.
Yeah. So that's fine. Let him get his run. Let him have some fun. Like you said, Cade, he looked, I guess, decent in his first game. What you would expect out of a rookie. He finished 2 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, something like that. But they got the win. So they beat the Magic. So, hey, that's what you ultimately want, is to get some wins, and he'll get better. But again, I'm still on the Evan Mobley train for rookie of the year at plus 600. That's pretty nice too.
Yeah. Those are juicy. The other East team I want to talk about in a little more, not a ton of detail, but the Heat. We kind of talked about them as more of a playoff team than a regular season team.
Yeah.
But so far, the Heat look awesome. as of right now, they have the best net rating in the NBA, and they banked some good wins on their schedule too. They beat the Bucks, the Nets, the Grizz, and the Hornets, and are currently at 5-1.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely look like one of the strongest teams in the East. Both of us had the Hawks coming out of the Southeast Division and being the leader there, but
yeah,
the Heat, because when you look at the Heat, yeah, they are revolved around Bam, Jimmy, and Kyle Lowry at this point. They're all old. Well, Jimmy and Kyle Lowry are older. Bam, you got to just make sure he's not injured. So I think we both were on the same wavelength of, okay, they'll kind of just like coast in the regular season and turn on the playoffs when that like, veteran leadership can come into play a little more, but they're coming out guns hot. And I think this all goes back to what we talked about in the beginning of the episode about kind of the new rules, the defensive emphasis on the game that is kind of shown, because they are a defensive first team by a long shot. So it makes sense that they're playing as well as they are given the new circumstances that we're seeing.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't think of a team better built for rougher defense being allowed than the Heat, especially with, you didn't mention PJ Tucker, who I wouldn't even be surprised if he's one of those players who shouldn't even bother playing in the regular season. He should only play when the playoffs start.
Yeah. He has that motor and that fire that like, you don't want it to go out too soon, because he'll bring it like that every single night. He doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Just put him on KD, exactly what the Bucks did in the playoffs. That probably won them the series. I mean, KD still went off, but PJ Tucker made him work for it. So
yeah, for sure.
I just like the roster. I mean, they have flamethrowers and Duncan Robinson. Tyler Heroes looked much better after that outlandish comment he had in the offseason. He's looked much, obviously he's no, what you say, Luka and Trae Young, but he's obviously not remotely close to them, but he's very good. And they just got a good team. And I've always liked Spoelstra. I feel like he's on a list of coaches that didn't get enough love coaching LeBron. Everyone just gave it to LeBron, but I think he's a great coach.
I love Spo. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, honestly.
Yep. Spo's the man. Totally agree. So just wanted to give Heat their love as the right now the number one leader in net rating. And then number two, who is the number one team in the West, the Jazz. So nobody really cares about the Jazz in the regular season, as they shouldn't, but just want to give them, again, some love. Second best net rating in the NBA, also 5-1, typical regular season machine.
Yeah, I mean, they're 4-0 against the Western Conference right now, 3-1 away, which is nice, and undefeated at home, 2-0. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be that quiet team in the regular season that no one talks about, no one cares about, because they're in Utah. It's a small market, but they're probably going to end up being second place in the West when it's all said and done.
And then losing the playoffs.
Yeah, that's normal. It's interesting to see the Clippers. They freaking look awful. 2-4, 11th place in the West. And then right above them are the Suns at 2-3. So a lot of weird things kind of starting the first couple of weeks of the NBA season here, but I think we're both in agreement that this is all kind of going to regress. One thing I did want to mention, and I know that we talked about it a little bit, is that the oldest team in the league, the Lakers, have the second fastest pace in the league right now.
That is hilarious.
That's ridiculous. I mean, I guess it's what you expect with the Russell Westbrook team, because he just runs and then turns it over. But it's weird to see that like I said, the oldest team in the league by a huge margin are the ones that are running the most.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you said, you can attribute that exactly to Russell Westbrook. For all his faults, he's definitely a runner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Clippers thing is interesting, because I think we both, you and I, thought they're going to be good this year, even without Kawhi. And sitting at 2-4 with their second win coming last night against the Thunder, where they had to have a crazy fourth quarter comeback to win.
Yep.
I think I don't know. I was kind of giving them praise last week, even though they were 1-2, and then they kind of had a not great year, or not great week, I should say, because I like Ty Lue and I like a lot of pieces they have, and PG's looked awesome.
But that's kind of where it stops.
Yeah, it really is. So you wonder if, I don't know, if maybe they're not quite as good as we thought, or if it's just a slow start.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Is it going to be the narrative of PG's putting up crazy stats on a really shitty team, or the other players kind of figure it out, and PG's kind of stepping up and being the alpha and the captain of this really chippy team?
Yeah, I mean, he's looked awesome. And then the Suns, I mean, we talked about Ayton last week. He's kind of in his head about the contract. And then Booker's had a slow start.
Yep.
And I wonder how much of that is just tired legs after a long or a short off season. Because didn't he go right to the Olympics from the finals? Him and KD and Chris Middleton.
Yep.
Or I guess KD was in the finals, but him and Chris Middleton. And I guess
Drew Holiday as well.
And Drew, yeah. Because he wasn't really one that lived at the free throw line. So I didn't really expect the foul rules to have any impact on him. So I'm guessing that Booker will turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, I also kind of, and this is something we talked about in one of our first pods, is the whole contract situation with Ayton.
Yeah.
Booker got his, but he's also still, like that whole thing with Ayton messing up his psyche could also mess with just the culture and with the, the way in which that team meshes. Because if he's out, then obviously, everyone kind of they work off each other. They build off each other. They bail off each other. So it might be something that's kind of causing them with this slow start or an impact of this slow start. But we'll see if they kind of figure it out too as the weeks go on here.
Yeah, weird vibes tend to have an impact on more than just the one player. So I wouldn't be surprised. And then I thought this was funny. So there are 4 teams that are aggressively tanking this year. And if you look at net rating, they're the last 4. It's Rockets, Magic, Pistons, Thunder. And then
that sounds about right.
Yeah, which is just funny that, I mean, the Thunder, I think the Sixers had the most high profile tank job. This Thunder team might be worse than those Sixers teams.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they came back to win that Lakers game.
I know.
They came back and I was like, wait, why are you doing this?
Why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they have some fun players. Like I like Josh Giddey as like a rookie. He looks fun.
Yeah. SG he's a stud.
Yeah, Shea's awesome. But I mean, that team is just so bad. And then the Pelicans are the 5th worst. And they might be on the list of teams that are going to tank this year if this whole Zion thing goes south.
Yeah, I mean, if he drinks more Mountain Dew and eats more chicken, then we're definitely going to be there soon.
Yeah, if he looks more like me after eating Taco Bell, then we're getting close.
All right, so moving
on. That's all I
had. That's all I got too.
The week that was. So we can quickly talk about the big games. So nice slate tomorrow on Wednesday. We're recording this Tuesday night. Bulls, Sixers, Hawks, Nets, Hornets, Warriors.
All right. So with that one, I will take. So are the Sixers going to have a full team or are they going to play with 5 people again?
I think they're going to play with, Embiid, he'll probably play because he was just resting his knee, but Tobias is still out with health and safety protocols. They haven't really said if he got COVID, if it's just close encounter,
right.
Or whatever that was. I think he's vaccinated, so he should be able to get back sooner rather than later. But I believe Shams said that he'll be out at least a couple games. So no Tobias. Yeah. Danny Green's probably out, but you'll get Embiid.
Yeah, I'll take the Bulls in that one. I think they care more about this game than the Sixers probably do.
Totally agree. I would take the Bulls as well.
Hawks, Nets. I'll take the Nets. I think the Hawks still haven't figured it out yet. And I think that the Nets are like I said, I think they're slowly hitting their stride. And I think that this will be a good win for them.
Yeah, Trae Young's had a slow start. And that's almost directly attributed to the foul rules.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And then I'll take the Warriors. Warriors, I think we gave them a lot of love last week. They had just as good of a week. They only lost 1 game to the Grizzlies. They've had a great week. So
yeah, they're second place in the West. I don't see that changing. I actually just put a future on them to win the West.
Nice.
So
nice. I like it.
Yeah, I'll take the Warriors as well.
Thursday night, we got Jazz Hawks. So back-to-back tough games for the Hawks. And then we got Celtics Heat, which was beginning of the year circled as a big game, but it's looking more like the Celtics going to implode and the Heat might be the best team or at least top 3 team in the NBA.
Yeah, I think this is both those games are going to be pretty lopsided. Hawks coming off a back-to-back, traveling then too, and playing the Jazz, who, like we said, are in regular season juggernaut. So Jazz will win that pretty easily. I think the Heat will also take care of business against the Celtics pretty easily as well.
Yeah. I like a little Jazz Heat money line parlay, depending on what the odds look like there. Mm-hmm. Friday, we got Knicks Bucks, which, the Knicks, it's hard to give them, it's hard to think too much about how high their ceiling is because you just know with that roster and with Tibbs that they're going to squeeze out regular season wins, but they don't. Last year, they just got annihilated in the playoffs once real basketball was played. So I don't know. They might beat the Knicks or the Bucks on Friday night, but I think we can both agree that no matter how good the Knicks look this year, there's nothing that can convince me that they're a contender.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're a contender, but like you said, I think regular season wise, they'll be good. I think they'll make the playoffs. But yeah, against the Bucks, I don't know. This again, I feel like with the woes the Bucks are kind of going through right now without Drew, if he's not back, I'll have to give this one to the Knicks as well. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league right now, and to be expected. They play at a very low pace too. So I think they'll be able to slow this team down and just kind of control in half court. Because if Drew's missing, then the Bucks half court game is pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, and Knicks, I mean, Tibbs always gets his guys to play hard. So
yeah.
And then Saturday we have another good slate. We got Jazz Heat, Sixers Bulls. So we got a rematch of Wednesday's game. Hawks Suns, which kind of rounds out a tough week for the Hawks. And then last good game of the week, Lakers Blazers.
Yeah, so the Jazz Heat, I think, is obviously, I think most people are going to circle that game to watch. This is a good Saturday showcase game. I think I'm going to go with the Heat on that one. I think that they, them slowing things down, I think that they'll win this one. I think Mitchell gets his, but I think that Bam versus Rudy is where I'm kind of looking to for Bam to flex his muscles there a little bit and take that. And the role players for Heat, I think, will come out a little more better since they're in Miami too.
Yeah. Heat are the home team. Yeah, I think Heat are a good team that can go. That are like one of those good teams for the playoffs that can get Rudy Gobert to like be a liability, where he isn't a liability against 95% of the NBA teams, but a team like the Heat that can go small and surround him, have shooting 5-out shooting. That's where you can kind of take advantage of Rudy. So I'll take the Heat.
Yeah. Sixers Bulls. I think I'm going to have to, with the unknown of what the Sixers are doing at this point. I mean, Saturday is a long time from now, but in terms of who's healthy, who's able to play, who's not, I think I'll have to take the Bulls again.
Yeah. I think they'll split it. So if the Sixers win tomorrow night, I think that's just going to go 1-1.
Yeah, that's fair. Hawks Suns. That's a tough one because we both talked about how they're both kind of underachieving at this point. I think I'll take the Hawks. They would have had a tough week at that point, but I think they'll come out with one victory. I think the Suns are the most susceptible to them losing, I guess, or the Hawks winning. So I'll take the Hawks there.
Yeah, I'll go with the Suns just to disagree, and I'll go with the Lakers in the last game.
Yeah, I agree with the Lakers too. Blazers don't look that great right now. Dame is not playing well.
Dame has been terrible.
Yeah, it's really bad how gross he's played. But
yeah, I mean, it's funny because CJ's been awesome, but Dame, I mean, last night against the Sixers were missing their entire team, had 20 points on 20 shots.
His 10 toes are in Portland, but nothing else. He doesn't care one bit about him other than his toes.
Yeah, I think he's just playing nice. I do wonder if behind the scenes he's like, "Can you guys get me out of here?"
Yeah, I think it's really getting to that point where he's maybe just like, I couldn't care less about this team anymore, and it's starting to show in his play.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But looks like that'll about wrap things up. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we head out?
No, that's pretty much everything I got. Let's see if I can find a good arbing opportunity. It doesn't seem like there's very many at this point. They're all pretty low in terms of percentage, but we'll see some next week. I'll throw a few out for you guys just so we can try to get more, since I know this week we're not going to have many, but yeah, like I said, next week I'll throw a few scattered throughout the pod.
Yeah, I'd follow, definitely make sure to follow us on Twitter. That's where I doing a new thing where I'll just post one positive EV play, one player prop, one non-player prop a night. So I'll just give a hint tonight's De'Aaron Fox over 5.5 assists. You can get that at plus 130 on Caesar. They play the Jazz, where I don't know if the Kings are going to win, but 6 assists for De'Aaron Fox, I'll take. And that's about 10%, a little over 10% expected value there, expected positive value.
Gotta love a 10%er. I'm all for that. That sounds good.
Double digits. Yeah, always good to go. So that'll about wrap things up. As always, make sure to subscribe to our new YouTube channel, or OddsJam NBA show. Follow us on Twitter at Modi_sports
and at BetArbs.
And yeah, so that'll be it. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and happy betting, happy watching, and good luck.
Take care, y'all.